Welcome to the 97 Republic YouTube channel, where I react to UFC news and live events. So I kindly ask that you hit the like button and the subscribe button, as that will really help this channel grow. And to ensure that you don't skip a beat, feel free to click the notification bell as well. That way you can ensure that you don't miss any of the action. I really hope you enjoy this one. We have 8 billion people on planet Earth, and by either chance or bad luck, Magomed Ankalaev is fighting the scariest one. Now, there's already a BMF belt inside of the UFC. They should make an SMF belt as well. The scariest mother belt inside of the UFC. Because just because you're bad doesn't necessarily mean you're scary. For example, a person that knows nothing of the sport, doesn't watch mixed martial arts, doesn't watch the UFC, would 100% pick a fight with Justin Gaethje if that individual is drunk inside of a bar. Now obviously the repercussions would be you would meet your entire bloodline, but no sane person ever would willingly pick a fight with Alex Pereira. And in order to be classified as a scary individual, there are some characteristics that you need to have, and one of them is look like you may, now obviously he is not, may participate in sacrificial activities. If ever a story broke out, breaking news, Alex Pereira has been, would not be surprised at all, would probably phone my best friends and tell him, see, I told you so. And we have some scary individuals and had some scary individuals inside of the UFC. Guys like Cain Velasquez, Alex Pereira, Vanderlei Silva, even like Mikro Krokop, just you feel uncomfortable just looking at them. Would 100% watch a SMF fight. Now with that being said, Alex Pereira is taking on Magomed Ankalaev in the main event of UFC 313 for the light heavyweight championship of the UFC. And probably safe to say, would be the toughest fight in Alex Pereira's UFC career. Now, no disrespect to anyone Alex has fought, seeing that I'm massive fans of most of them. But we've seen Alex Pereira face strikers, and apart from one outcome, we've seen the same thing happen. We've seen knockout after knockout after knockout after knockout. We've seen it take place. The first time that Alex actually fought someone who mixes up striking and grappling was probably against Jan Blachowicz, and that was an insanely close fight, which could have probably gone either way. And Magomed Ankalaev fits that bill, where if Ankalaev feels like he has a considerable disadvantage on the feet, would probably initiate some takedowns and have Alex on the ground. Basically the same thing, the very same thing that happened to Ankalaev when he fought Jan Blachowicz for the light heavyweight championship a few years ago, where Ankalaev got pieced up on the feet and basically had Jan Blachowicz blasting his legs out from underneath him, and then Ankalaev basically started dominating the fight by initiating takedowns, getting Jan Blachowicz down, and then basically ground and pounding him. So, would probably say that Magomed Ankalaev is the smartest opponent with regards to fight IQ that Alex will face. Now, I saw Magomed say this, which not a very smart thing to say, but 100% has really good fight IQ, and it shouldn't be disputable that Alex Pereira is the best fighter at light heavyweight, but is not the most well-rounded fighter at light heavyweight. For some reason, people fail to make that distinction, where just because you're the best doesn't mean you're the most well-rounded. If we look at guys like Khabib, Conor, Israel Adesanya, a lot of these guys weren't the most well-rounded guys within the division, but they were so good at their craft that they basically needed nothing else. Or needed anything else. Where Habib was so good at wrestling, could enforce his will on every single opponent he ever faced, and basically didn't need striking, because he would just wrestle you, take you down, either submit or end the fight by a ground and pound. Conor, this exact opposite applies. Conor didn't really need to initiate in wrestling exchanges with his opponents. I'm sure he needed good wrestling defense, but Conor would never, apart from Nate Diaz, Conor would never shoot, just because most of the time, 98% of the time, would probably have the advantage if the fight played out on the feet. The exact same thing applies with Israel Adesanya. So just being a well-rounded fighter doesn't make you the best. The best makes you the best. So Alex Pereira is the best striker, I'd probably say, in the UFC right now. And we've seen him fight strikers. We've seen him face Sean Strickland. We've seen him face Izzy. We've seen him fight Yuri Prohashka twice. Obviously saw him against Jamal Hill, Khalil Roundtree. We've seen him face strikers. We haven't really seen him face wrestlers, apart from Michelitis in his first fight. But now, obviously, Michelitis is not the same as Magomed Ankalaev. So will be a really good test, seeing that when he fought someone that really initiated in wrestling exchanges, he struggled against Jan Blachowicz and basically won via split decision. Really close fight. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what Magomed Ankalaev does in this fight, because there's no way that Magomed Ankalaev is actually thinking of standing and just striking with Alex Pereira. No one wins that fight. It basically should be a testament to how good Israel Adesanya is, seeing that he actually fought that fight a lot of times and ended up being the guy that knocked out Alex Pereira inside of the UFC. Apart from Izzy, no one's winning the fight in that way. If the fight plays out in that way, nobody is winning that fight. The man has power we have never seen before. He has enough power in his hands to start a nuclear power plant. He has anesthetics in his hands, where if that fist touches your face, you are probably going to sleep. We've seen that play out a lot of times with regards to Alex's fights. So the road to victory for Magomed Ankalaev has to be taking Alex down. There is no person that wins this fight if the fight plays out on the feet. No one. And no one's winning that fight that way. So Magomed has to engage in wrestling, has to take Alex down, either dominate him via going 5 rounds, dominating him on the ground, win by unanimous decision, or basically ground and pound his way to victory. And I'll go into more depth with regards to my analysis later in the week. But basically, just a little bit of an appetizer for the main event of UFC 313, Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev. Now, there is something that I do want to discuss, and I spoke about it with regards to Henry Cejudo when he fought Song Yadong, with Henry being regarded, I'd say unanimously, as the most decorated combat athlete of all time. With that being said, do you honestly think that Alex Pereira might have a say in the matter? If we look at, I'm gonna throw some stats. I'll throw some perspective on this subject, where I'm gonna compare Alex Pereira and Henry Cejudo, and basically compare their careers within the UFC, and just show you how insane Alex Pereira has been inside of the UFC, where it is unparalleled at this point. So obviously Henry went on to win an Olympic gold medal, being the best in the world in his craft. Now the same applies to Alex Pereira, where he was a 2-division champion in Glory Kickboxing, so being the best in the world in his craft. Then Henry obviously came to the UFC and was a double champion. Now Alex obviously did that as well. The only difference is Henry was a simultaneous double champion, and then obviously Alex Pereira wasn't. But here's where things start to become insane when looking at Alex Pereira's UFC career. So Alex had his first title fight in his 4th fight inside of the UFC. Henry had his first title fight within his 5th fight inside of the UFC. And Obviously, Henry went on to lose his very first chance when he fought Demetrius Johnson, and only rematched Demetrius Johnson in his 8th fight inside the UFC. By that time, Alex Pereira was already a double champion. So in his 4th fight, Alex beats Izzy. In the rematch, Izzy beats Alex. 6th fight, Alex goes to light heavyweight. 7th fight, he beats Yuri Prochazka. So already not the same. Now, just to put it into perspective, Alex Pereira's had 10 fights inside of the UFC. 6 of them has been for a championship belt. 6 of them. If we just take that stat into account, just to basically compare it with other champions, Alexandre Pantoja has had 16 fights within the UFC. 4 of them has been for a championship belt. Islam Makhachev, 17 fights within the UFC. 5 of them has been for a championship belt. Merab Dvalishvili, 14 fights within the UFC. 2 of them has been for a championship belt. Basically, the only person that the ratio would compare to Pereira's fights with regards to fights for championship belt would probably be John Jones. And because seeing that John has basically fought for a championship belt for as long as I've been alive, the only person that would actually compare to Alex, and it's basically going to be 11-7 this weekend. And just when looking at it, we've seen guys dominant. Even Dricus has had 9 fights within the UFC, won all of them. Only 3 of them has been for a championship belt, and massive Dricus fan. But it just showcases how dominant and how meteoric his rise has been within the UFC. If we look at the amount of time it took Alex Pereira to be this dominant, it is insane. He has had 10 fights in 3.5 years. So to put that into perspective, Magomed Ankalaev has had 14 fights within the UFC over the span of 7 years. So half the time, and it's even less than half, but let's say half of the time it took Magomed Ankalaev to have 14 fights, Alex has had 10 of them. 6 of them has been for a championship belt. You know what the record is for the most defenses within a year? 3. Which is Alex Pereira's record, which obviously he ties with, I think it's Alexandre Pantoja. That is how dominant he has been. And honestly, I'm going to say it, Alex Pereira is the most decorated combat athlete of all time. And if ever he wins, at any point of his career, wins the belt at heavyweight, that statement should be unanimous.